What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you an update for an incredibly budget, very fun and very powerful deck, and that is going to be Exodia Millennium. So just to be specific on that one, because you could technically play just normal Exodia, draw, all 5 pieces of Exodia, and off we go. But I actually really like the modernized buff this deck got. I thought it was a really kind of cool approach. I like the idea that you can be all out aggressive, go second, which is exactly how I've built this deck. But then what you really need to do if you do decide to play the deck this way is you then need to learn your siding patterns as to what you put in for going first. You can play stuff like Secret Villager, the Spellcasters. You can play more direct Floodgate trap cards. When you look through this list, and I'll show you exactly what I've got and explain everything behind it, the hand traps that we're trying to utilize are ones that are either going to mitigate our opponent's end field to then allow our breakers to fully resolve, or they're going to be ones that give you an incredible buff, and they can be subjective and adapted as you go through the list. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So starting off with the core component of the deck. Now, it's a bit of a shame that you have to play these pieces, but then it wouldn't feel like an Exodia if you didn't play these pieces. So you play one of every piece of Exodia, of course. So you've got Exodia, the left arm, left leg, the right arm, right leg, and of course Exodia, the Forbidden One itself. Now you have to play all of these pieces. These are the detriment, because if you hard open up one of these pieces, it means that the reveal off of Millennium Ankh is going to be not so great. But the fact of the matter is, what I also love about this deck as well, is probably something I should have said, it's one of the cheapest ones to get extra shiny, because all of the pieces came in mega tins as either reprinted upgrades to Starlight rares or prints as Quarter Century secret rares. If you wanted to make this deck full Starlight, you technically could do, I believe, because you can get the original Starlight piece of Exodia. That wouldn't be so cheap. You get Starlight Exodia, the Forbidden Incarnates. You can also get Starlights of all the main deck, well, I say all the main deck monsters. You've got Heart, and then you've got your Millennium Ankh, but then you can also get Quarter Century rare versions of pretty much everything else as well. So the deck can look extra shiny for Exodia, which it probably should do. But yeah, you want to play one of every piece. Unfortunately, you can't really play this in Genesis because of your Senganjin being 33 points. You could adapt it a little bit, and I believe the Exodia itself, I could probably double check this right by me. Yeah, the Exodia Fusion Monster itself is 20 points, so it does get very costly. But just in Modern, you can still really play this deck and do incredibly well. Then we want to play free Heart of the Blue Eyes. Now, the idea behind this card is you want to get to Millennium Ankh. That's what you want to try and do. You want to use all of your cards possible to get to Millennium Ankh. You want to make sure your first search is going to be for Millennium Ankh, so that if you do get drolled and lockbirded, you still have ways to play. We are playing a card in the main deck that will allow you to specifically call out a card that would end your turn or make your turn less effective, because we are trying to go Millennium Ankh, one shot with Exodia Incarnate, OTK, and off you go. So I'll explain that as we go through it. We've then got 3 Senganjin Wakes from a Millennium. So you can get this as an ultra rare, a Quarter Century secret rare, and a secret rare in the megatins. These cost me like £1 a piece, so very cheap. If you want to get like common Exodia, you can do. This is why I'm saying this deck can be made shiny for a little bit more budget, but can also be kept low rarity for incredibly cheap. It's insane. And what I love about it, if you're a fan of Exodia, if you're a fan of like Grandpa Yugi, not to mention if you like Blue Eyes, you like Senganjin, you like the Shield, everything like that. It's just such an incredibly fun deck. And the one thing it can also do is it doesn't actually play into it. Like all of the chummies, it'll give like one draw off the chummy, and that's when you use your Millennium Ankh. Because all of these cards, apart from the Heart of the Blue Eyes, which will come from the graveyard, but that will only come during the grind state, come from the Spell and Trap Zone, which no chummy will trigger, which is absolutely insane. We've got 2 Shield of the Millennium. So this one, of course, being able to utilize, so I should probably explain what each of them do. So the Heart of the Blue Eyes, discard it, add a Millennium Ankh, great success. And then during your opponent's turn, you can summon it back from the graveyard. I believe it's when they specifically summon a card. It's just very rare. So if this card is in your graveyard and you have successfully activated Millennium Ankh this duel, if your opponent normal or specials a monster that is level 8 or higher or has 3000 or more attack, you can send that monster to the graveyard if you do special on this card. Now, very rarely in my particular approach for this deck am I going to do that, because like I said, I want to go second, I want to push for the OTK. If I do go first, then this will become an additional disruption. But again, you want to try and get access to the Heart of the Blue Eyes, as it's always treated as a Millennium card, so Senganjin can get to it, and you kind of move on from there. The Senganjin is your most important card. Now this one, again, can't be destroyed by monster effects, which is really good. You put it into the Spell and Trap Zone. You can then either pay 2,000 life points or reveal a Millennium Ankh in the hand to special summon it, and then you get to add a Millennium monster from the deck to the hand. The shield, again, either reveal Millennium Ankh or pay 2,000 life points, and then you get to special on this card, and if you do, you add a Millennium Ankh directly from the deck. Now, the idea is, you'd want to go Senganjin to Heart of the Blue Eyes, Heart of the Blue Eyes to Ankh. That's the, like, ideal scenario. However, if you're trying to play around draw, you're better off going shield into Ankh. And the reason you do that is because, like, your Senganjin is a monster on the field with 2750 attack. It's going to be very, very damaging. Whereas the shield is 0 attack. So a 3k defense is not that great for you. And you can't really play generic cards because when you use your Millennium Ankh, everything apart from Millennium Monsters gets shuffled back into the deck. And your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate gets attack equal to your life points. So that's why there is a card in here that is going to manipulate your life points for the better. Then we're playing 2 Golem that guard the Millennium. Now, again, this one, the activation of your Millennium Ankh cannot be negated. Very important that the activation can't be negated, not the effect. So if they negate the effect, you will still cry. And again, that's why we're playing a card in this deck that allows you to counter that directly. So this one, again, while it is a continuous spell card, you place it into the spell and trap zone. You either pay 2,000 life points or reveal a Millennium Ankh to special summon it. And on doing so, you get to add the Yugioh Temple from the deck to the hand. Now, I'm only playing one Yugioh Temple. I'm not relying it on as heavily because it's one of these ones that is still very good because during the main phase, you place a monster from your hand into the spell and trap zone as a face-up continuous, and then you place a Millennium monster directly from the deck. So hand traps like the Moltres that will become a little bit dead after you've used them. So like if you open up multiple and you've already gone through 2 during your opponent's turn, they will become free fodder you can put into the spell and trap zone. It's also another way of getting a Millennium monster from the hand into the spell and trap zone and then getting the one that you want being something like the Senganjin, because then that will work your way into the Millennium Ankh, and that's what you're trying to achieve. So I think 1 is more than enough. When you start going into the side deck, if you want to be focusing on Secret Village of the Spellcasters, you can look at stuff like Set Rotation, Terraforming, all the other cards that will get to that card more consistently. And the reason you'd want to utilize something like Secret Village is because your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate can be like an 8k spellcaster monster that they can't really deal with, which makes it very, very tricky, and they're like, cool, I can't activate spells. Then moving on to the main Millennium card of this deck, this card. So glad it actually got Starlight Rare as well because it deserves it. Is 3 Millennium Ankh. So technically you could play one of it, but your consistency would be a lot less. Is that your way of disapproving of me saying to play 1 Millennium Ankh? I'll take that as a yes. Squeaky toy. There we go. She's probably going to come back. I didn't finish one through. Can you let me finish? Or do you want to say hello? You want to say hello? No? You don't want to say hello? Come on, say hello so that people know who's disrupting the profile on Exodia. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool, thank you. There you go, darling. Right. Go on, go show your mother. Anyway, back to the scheduled process. 3 Millennium Ankh, evidently 1 is not good enough. So you show 5 Forbidden 1 monsters, so all 5 pieces of Exodia from the hand, deck, or face-up field. Then special summon 1 Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate from the extra deck. Then you shuffle the face-up monster cards you control into the deck except Exodia monster cards, whose original levels are 10 or higher, and Millennium monster cards. You can't special for the rest of the turn after this activation. Shuffle this card into the deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. Now, it's specifically you cannot summon, which means you can't even hold a normal summon button and go normal summon. So after you use the Millennium Ankh, that is it, no more. But the idea is you're putting your way into an 8k boss monster that's going to pretty much lead you to game. Absolutely insane. The fact it recycles itself can be quite helpful as well, but it means you'll never deck out, which I suppose is a good thing, unless they mill it. Then the other Exodia cards you play is the 1 Obliterate Blaze. So this is a quick play that 1 level 10 or higher monster on the field with Exodia in its original name gains the following effects. You can pay half your life points to destroy as many cards in the spell and trap zones as possible, then equip 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from the hand and or deck to the card as equip spells. That gives it 2,000 attack per. Also, you can't activate other card effects for the rest of this turn. Now the idea is, you equip it with all 5 pieces of Exodia, it goes to 10k. On top of that as well, as if it attacks event system monster, you inflict piercing battle damage. This is your winner. Like, if you activate Blaze and you don't win that turn, you kind of need to, like, you can still win. I'm not saying like it's end of the duel, but you won't be able to resolve Millennium Ankh again. Like, if they out your Exodia Incarnate, like they kaiju you, that's it. You can't do anything because all 5 pieces then go to the graveyard. Ankh can't show forbidden pieces from the graveyard, which is a big sad. But that is your all out. That's you're going to go for your winner. Then we've got the one Exodia Fire's Rage. Now, technically, you could side this out, but I wanted to have a contingency plan if I wasn't able to complete the OTK. And this is a card that can be set off of your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate during the end phase that gives you the ability that is always treated as an Exod or an Obliterate card. And if you control a level 10 or higher Exodia, you destroy all cards your opponent controls. If it's in the graveyard except the turn of sent there, you banish it to then activate one of the following effects. Add a Forbidden 1 monster from the deck or grave back to the hand. Shuffle up to 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from the graveyard and or banishment back into the deck. So if you go through Blaze, you need to then get to this to do it. And it's kind of like going to be a turn slower. But the idea is that it was a contingency. There are some other cards in here you could sub out if you want to be a bit more balanced. Like, okay, if I can't complete the OTK, how do I go for it? So moving on to the generic cards. As you see, we don't use a normal summon, so you can actually utilize Lava Golem. You could play trade-in, because technically this plus Senganjin are level 8s, but the idea is that I'm going second, I want to draw all my cards, and rather than playing like direct breakers, which you can still do, being able to go Lava Golem, clear off 2 of my opponent's monsters, so like a Herald of the Arclight plus a Snatchy, without retaliation or response from my opponent is really, really important. And it kind of gives you a nice little bit of an added edge. You should be able to deal with this very easily. And the idea is that you can attack with your Unstoppable Incarnate. That will guarantee 5,000 damage to your opponent over the top of the Lava Golem. Then you do need to back it up with the Golem that guards the treasure or the Senganjin. But you also have access to some cards in the extra deck that I'll show you to help clear your opponent's field out, so that when you're attacking, you're trying to attack as directly as much as possible with the Unstoppable Exodia to push through for the OTK. Now, this is just a tech card that I choose to play. You don't have to play this. The other one that is probably going to be more balanced for the format would be Drow and Lockbird, but I do like to play Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. Now, the reason I like to play this is because straight away when I activate it, my opponent goes, what the hell is this deck? Why are you main decking Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood? Now, the benefit of something like this is because it increases your life points, it means that you don't have that much of an issue paying your 2,000 life points for your Senganjin or your Golem or anything else like that, because it will still maintain your life points to be high enough so that your Unstoppable Exodia can go for an OTK one-shot. If you don't need to pay your life points because you've hard opened up the Millennium Ankh, you then also make sure that your Exodia Incarnate is going to be a lot higher than 8,000. So that if you do give your opponent a Lava Golem, you don't really care, because you could be on an 11,000 attack stat Unstoppable Exodia, and then that's going to push for an OTK just straight over opponent's Lava Golem. That being said, it is a bit of a gimmicky card. You can put this in the side deck, you can just cut it out completely. Drow and Lockbird is the one that is going to be the more meta-defining, and it's one of the ones that does just stop your opponent. But I felt I quite like the idea of this, as I have a bit more control. Like, no matter what deck I play, if my opponent is not playing a search style deck and Drow's not going to be effective, at least Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood would still be semi-effective. Yes, it's not that great in the Yummy matchup, because you're only going to get like little bumps here and there, but as long as you time it correctly, it could still be quite effective for you. Then we're playing 2 chummies at 3 apiece, so 3 Fualos and 3 Perulia. Now, I say budget, and what I mean by budget is technically this video will come out either Monday or Tuesday, and then Wednesday/Thursday is when the Legendary 5Ds deck come out, so you should be able to pick these up relatively cheaply. Now again, keeping in mind, I think the pre-orders on each of these, someone told me, well, I haven't personally looked, but I think someone told me they were like £7 to £10 a copy. It's kind of giving Soul Burner / Ash kind of prices. But then if you come together with a couple of your friends, and a couple of your friends are like, I've already got chummies, but I want the new Synchron cards, or I've already got chummies, but I want Black Wings for Time Wizard, or I want Black Roses for Genesis, then they'll buy the decks and they can easily sort you out with the Perulias or the Fualoses. Again, if you don't have access to these as of yet, Drow and Lockbird is another cheap alternative. Fualos, in my opinion, is like a dead cert, because the idea is that when you're dropping hand traps like this, like Drow and Lockbird, it puts your opponent in a position where they're like, I don't feel comfortable taking the challenge. I don't feel comfortable giving my opponent the overall end field that I can get away with, and that's when you're just going to gain so much more advantage, because you can draw into cards that you're going to need. Moving on, let's continue with the breakers, and I'll save like the last card for possible. So 3 Raigeki, you can very easily play Lightning Storm. I've gone with Raigeki and Harpy's Feather Duster. I did play 3 Lightning Storm in the main, but I changed it out for this particular card right here. And the reason I did it for that one was because when I was thinking about this, I was like, what cards stop Millennium Ankh? That's the card I want to resolve. There are ways to kind of pick your opponent's field apart through the extra deck that I'll show you, in order to make sure that when you're activating your Millennium Ankh, you don't worry about the field at all. You're only worried about what they have in the hand. So then the counteraction to that one is like, what could they possibly have in their hand that would then stop me completing the OTK and resolving the most important card being the Millennium Ankh? So I decided to go for 3 Sales Bam. So with Sales Ban, the one you're probably going to want to call if you know what your opponent is on, but by the time they have presented their field, like if they start revealing Mitsurugis, they're probably going to have a Dominus Impulse. If they start revealing DDDs, Malice, they're probably going to have Dominus Impulse. So you'd go Sales Ban, call Dominus Impulse. If there's any card present on the field and they're not playing a dark deck like that could negate and you can't out it with Lava Golem, or you haven't outed it with Lava Golem, or you haven't seen Lava Golem, you activate Sales Ban and call that, and then you make sure your Millennium Ankh resolves. So you're trying to call all of these cards that could possibly stop what you're trying to present. Once you get to resolve your Millennium Ankh, that's it, you're in great success. The one very important thing as well, so Millennium Ankh is, I'm just trying to remember on this one, because I think it's like, it doesn't even have like a use. So from deck to grade, but you can't special summon Millennium Monster cards. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of this turn after the activation. So this is where it gets really important. Is if your opponent has a card that negates the activation and you don't have, like if they negate activation, you've got Golem on the field, you're happy, you're laughing, like they've missed the Golem's protection effect. But if you don't have Golem on the field and they activate a card that negates its activation, you can activate a second Millennium Ankh. If they negate its effects, then you can't activate another one. So that's when you want to call cards that are going to negate the effects, which is what I'm trying to lead that back to is Sales Ban, call Dominus Impulse over calling, I think, Purification. Pretty sure Purification negates the activation. If it doesn't negate the activation, then obviously take into account that what I'm trying to talk about is cards that negate the activation, which you don't mind them resolving. Let them have that, and you go, cool, second Millennium Ankh, happy days, off we go. So that's it for the entire main deck. You can adapt this to go first a little bit more should you wish to. In doing so, you'd probably rely less on the chummies, but I think this is probably like the most fun way of playing this style of deck. Now for the extra, I'm not going to show you a full 15, I'm just going to show you the cards that you're going to want to play staple-wise, and then the remaining 6 cards in the extra deck will either become Ultimate Slayer targets that you can utilize for your side deck, or they can become like just generic targets you want to utilize. You could play Super Poly, but keep in mind if you use Super Poly, the monster that you make with it, you need to link it off, or you need to get it off the field. So the one you're going to get the most use out of would be Garura, because that'll then let you get a draw, because if you activate Ankh, they're all going to get shuffled back into the extra deck. So, 3 Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. You shouldn't ever really need to go through all 3, but there might be times where you will do so. So you'd rather play 3 and not, like, the only time you not want to play 3 is if you're playing Genesis and you're trying to cut down your point allocation, but you want to max out on this guy. So it can't be destroyed by opponent's card effect, and then once per turn, if this card battles during damage calculation, you can make this card gain attack equal to your life points. Once per turn, when a spell, trap card, or effect is activated, you get a quick effect to negate the activation. And then once per turn during the end phase, you get to set an Exod or an Obliterate spell or trap from the deck. Once per turn during your standby, you lose 1,000 life points. Now, we shouldn't need to worry about that effect because we are pushing to go for the OTK, but the idea is that you're going to be able to kind of push through for the OTK, and if you do have this on the field, remember, you're going to take 1,000 life points of damage. Then the other generics we just play like a generic Link lineup. So IP Masquerena, so you'd put 2 Millennium Monsters into this, and this is if you're not going to go to the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. You can also go into the Scylla Hat Rabbit. You'd go into this just to set you the Statue Azaroon, because when you put this back into the extra deck, you've got to use it again, but the Statue Azaroon is just a disruption, so again, it's more for going first, and that's why I would side in the Statue Azaroon. Cards that you're actually going to get the most use out of will be something like your Nightmare Phoenix and your Nightmare Cerberus, for the pure fact that you go activate either of these. So Cerberus can out your own Lava Golem, it can out any of your opponent's monsters, it can threat any of your opponent's monsters, just making sure that you're picking these cards off before you use your Millennium Ankh. And then Nightmare Phoenix again does the exact same thing, deals with your opponent's spells and traps, so your Millennium Ankh is more consistent to resolve. SP Little Knight gives you the balance to deal with pretty much any card on the field, and then that other benefit that if your opponent reacts to it, you tag it out and go. This will be a card that if the final slots you choose to play will be your Super Poly targets, then you would Super Poly and then use that monster as link material to go into one of these 3 cards. And then the final card is the Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. Again, if your Millennium Ankh activation gets negated and you can't activate another one because you don't have access to one, you can go into a Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, and it becomes like a mini towers that your opponent might struggle to out. So it does become very, very specific. It comes down to the environment that you are going into, but you have so much flex spots in the extra deck. The only ones that I advise you play as an absolute staple would be the 3 Unstoppable Exodia, the SP Little Knight. Like, IP is still flexible in my opinion. It's just another way of getting into the Blackluster Soldier or getting into SP during your opponent's turn. But you'd play these, and then I would probably say you could still afford to play both of these, if I'm being completely honest. But then the rest of the lineup either become Super Poly targets if you want to put them in the main deck, or they become Ultimate Slayer targets. Then for the other rest of the deck, If you're going first, you're going to want to try and max out on access to Secret Village. I think is going to be quite useful for you. You would then play hand traps that are specific for the environment, so Draw and Lock Bird, Molchommy Meows, Dark Holes if you want to, Lightning Storms, you name it. You've got a lot of flexible options to kind of play around and give you different options to play with. But what I love about this deck is the fact that it's incredibly cheap, it's very, very fun, very nostalgic as well, and I really, really enjoy it. So it's one of my personal favorites of like modernized Yu-Gi-Oh that I've seen for a long, long time. Like bringing back a nostalgic monster, I think is really cool. So I'll tell you what, I'm not even going to use Exodia's head. I think this is quite funny. So the Ankh is the head. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.